Hello and welcome to this week's 1829 talk. You're very welcome. I am Professor Annie Tindley and it's my honour to be one of the trustees of the Natural History Society of Northumbria and to be introducing these 1829 series of talks to you. The 1829 talks highlight and celebrate the year of our foundation as a society, as one of the oldest and most honourable natural history societies in Britain. And the purpose of these talks is to allow a platform and showcase for the most exciting and cutting edge new research being undertaken by our early career researchers. So they're here really to share with us the latest findings in environmental research. As such, I hope you enjoy this week's talk. And I could urge you, if you can, to follow us on social media, Natural History Society of Northumbria, and enjoy the talk.
Hello everyone, we'd like to wish you a happy new year, and we're happy to be presenting to you on the first Friday of 2021. Today we're going to be talking about Canopy camera traps, monitoring connectivity in Gosforth Nature Reserve for arboreal mammals. And this is us. I'm Tabitha Ewing. I'm currently studying a part-time Master's in Environmental Forestry, working part-time with Rainforest Connection and also with Scottish Forestry as an Assistant Woodland Officer.
I'm Jess Ward and I've just finished my PhD here in Newcastle, working with the Modelling Evidence and Policy Group, where my project has been focused on modelling sociality in carnivores.
And I'm Laura Brownholtz. I'm in the final year of my PhD, also with the Modelling Evidence and Policy Research Group at Newcastle University. And my research focuses on the effect of roads on mammal communities in rainforests. But today, as mentioned by Tabby, we're going to be discussing another project. So a bit of background to this project. First, thinking a bit about the ecological context. Gosforth Nature Reserve, we're interested in it as a pocket of habitat in a complex human-modified landscape. So, as I'm sure you're all aware, land use change and habitat loss are causing declines in species across the globe. And more specifically, in the UK, the 2019 State of Nature report identified urbanisation as one of the key drivers of biodiversity loss in the UK. So our remaining areas of natural and semi-natural habitat are really important for our wildlife, not to mention the multitude of other environmental, social and economic benefits they provide. I'm sure over the last 10 months, we've all become increasingly aware of how important our local green spaces are for our mental and physical well-being. So these areas, such as Gosforth Nature Reserve, provide a haven to many species, and they're really valuable corridors linking city centres to more urban or more rural areas. And those of you that have been fortunate enough to visit the reserve will be aware of its rich biodiversity. However, these pockets of natural and semi-natural habitat are not immune to the pressures of the matrix that surrounds them. There's often a very high edge to internal ratio, meaning that edge effects, which are the abiotic and biotic changes that occur when you have neighbouring different landscape uses, are extensive throughout the reserve. In addition, there's increased risk of invasive non-native species becoming dominant across these small pockets of natural and semi-natural habitat. There's also other aspects such as potential risk of fatality to the wildlife from the road networks that surround these areas, and from the home dwellings having pet species like domestic cats and dogs, which can enter into the reserves and depredate the wildlife. So that's a bit of the context of the ecology side of things. And the other aspect that we're looking at in this project is the technology. So we're using camera traps, which I'm sure you have all, or most of you have heard of, because they're an increasingly popular method to monitor wildlife, and they allow us to do that non-invasively. They've given us insights to species behavior. For some species, they allow us to identify individuals within the population. More generally, they can allow us to estimate population metrics such as abundance or density. And more recently, there's been advances in this method, so it's been taken to new levels, and the camera traps have been put up into Canopy and used to monitor arboreal species, and this has allowed for techniques such as monitoring connectivity of woodlands where a road is cutting in between them. So yeah, we're interested in this in both the technology and the ecology side of the project. And I'll hand over to Jess to talk more about the specifics of what we've been up to.
Thanks for that, Laura. Yeah, so as Laura said, the Gosforth Nature Reserve is a really good place for us to do this study. And at the start of the summer, we set out to really quantify the abundance and distribution of mammals across the reserve. We had planned to do some small mammal trapping, so particularly thinking about kind of depredation from pets, so from cats. We thought it'd be really interesting to get an idea across the reserve, but unfortunately we haven't been able to do the small mammal trapping this summer, so hopefully we'll be able to do that in the future. So we've focused on the camera trapping aspect of this study. So we've used arboreal cameras and terrestrial cameras. And we're really interested in seeing, is there a difference between what the arboreal cameras give us back and the information that we get from the ground cameras? And particularly we were thinking about squirrels. So Laura mentioned invasive species, so the grey squirrel. We were thinking this might be a good kind of opportunity to see if this camera trapping method would be useful for recording grey squirrel activity. And again, thinking about kind of the anthropogenic pressures that Laura previously mentioned. So if we go to the next slide, we can see where we placed our cameras across the reserve. So we were aiming to kind of get a fairly even distribution across the reserve. So we split the reserve up into kind of different distances from the edge. So where we've got kind of different pressures coming in from the edges, so whether that's the housing estate in the southwest or the main road that runs up towards the east of the reserve. So we generated some random points across the reserve, and then in the summer when we went out to put the cameras out, we would walk to our random point and we would find a suitable tree as close to that point as possible. So this shows where we've ended up putting our cameras. If we go on to the next slide, we can show you a little bit of what we were doing over the summer. So you might have seen us wandering around the reserve with all of our kit. So when we were climbing the trees, we start with the catapult, which is this big yellow catapult on the left that Laura's using to fire a line over a tree. That lets us put the rope up so that we can then climb up there, put the camera on the trunk of the tree, facing out over a branch. We were generally looking for branches that were kind of flat, so that gives us kind of a nice field of view for the camera to hopefully capture some interesting behaviours. And then once we've set the camera up and we're happy with it, just get to abseil back down to earth. So that was our summer. We've still got most of the cameras out on the reserve, but we did manage to get a couple back before Christmas. So we've still got the data analysis to do, but we thought we'd show you a couple of the pictures that we've got back so far. showing some nice pictures of some different bird species. So it's really nice to get these images, and also to see we have got a couple of images of grey squirrels. So it's kind of giving us hope that this might be a useful method for monitoring squirrel activity and abundance. And I think we're all keeping our fingers crossed that hopefully, if we're lucky, we might get a picture of a red squirrel. So that's something for us to look forward to as we collect the cameras back in. I'll hand you over to Tabby now, who's going to talk a bit more about these kind of Canopy technologies.
Thank you, Jess. So yeah, some other applications of Canopy technologies. The team have also worked in other projects, and Laura and myself were involved in Treetop Manu, based in the Manu National Park in the Peruvian Amazon, one of the most biodiverse places in the world. And this project used both terrestrial and Canopy camera traps to record the presence and behaviour and ecology of rare and elusive species. So it was also used to look at the proximity to population and disturbance, as well as canopy connectivity, and how these variables impacted the presence and behaviour of species. So here on the right hand side, some more images, slightly different species than what we're seeing in Gosforth, but the top image is a black-faced spider monkey, and the bottom is a red howler monkey. And if you look closely at the red howler monkey, you can see that it's calling in this picture, which is a pretty special moment to see. And if you want to find out any more about that project, we've included some resources at the end, including a paper co-authored by Laura, who was the project coordinator on that project for several seasons. And this is another application, not a camera-based one, but I was lucky enough to work with Rainforest Connection in November and December, installing Canopy audio devices in community forests in Western Sumatra. And this is one of the devices on the right here. That's a solar array, so lots of solar panels, which then power the device itself, which has a recorder within it. And these Canopy audio devices record sound 24/7. They have their own Wi-Fi, which is used to stream the audio continuously. And that's really useful because the system can detect noises associated with disturbance, such as chainsaws, gunshots, vehicle noises, as well as dogs, which are commonly used as hunting dogs. So illegal poaching can be detected as well. And it sends these live alerts to the ranger team, who are based in the neighbouring village or community, who can then go out to the forest and intervene in that illegal activity. And this is Robbie, one of my colleagues at Rainforest Connection, showing the rangers the dashboard, which is an interface that they can listen to the forest live from. And these recordings can also act as evidence for the prosecution of the illegal activities. And this technology actually has pretty wide application because it's also can be used in bioacoustic analysis, and can detect hundreds of species which are vocalizing very quickly. And it can also act as purely as a tech platform. So it's hoped that in the future it'll incorporate cameras and other devices just on that battery on the solar powered platform. So Canopy technologies and camera trapping specifically are really exciting fields, which have lots of applications for conservation. And I'll hand you back to Laura now.
Yeah, so it just leaves with me to say a massive thank you for you all listening to us, and thanks to the Dickinson Memorial Fund, who allowed us to buy some of the camera traps used in this project, and of course thanks to the Natural History Society of Northumbria for hosting these talks. And yeah, thank you. and I'll just share the slides with the resources mentioned previously.